My problem wasn't the cancer, it was the aloneness. And if I long for anything in my life, it's connection. I'm trained as a psychologist, and I've done 2 master's degrees and a doctorate. And in all of my training, telling your own story is like a big no-no. The whole purpose of this is hopefully to help other people feel less alone in these complicated moments in our lives, where we all let go of all of that fear and bullshit and just exist together as our most authentic, flawed, gorgeous, fucked up selves. When we can be ourselves, we have the best and most perfect chance at connection. I'm Sarah Schmidt, and this is Holy Schmidt, Season 1. Hi, welcome back to Holy Schmidt. I'm your host, Sarah Schmidt. Today, my mom and I are going to come together again to reflect on last week's episode. We're going to talk about loss and grief. Yep, we're going to talk about losing my dad, but we're going to take it a bit further and just talk about grief in all its many forms. She's going to offer us some really beautiful insights in what she's learned over her 82 years and a lot of life, and yes, a lot of loss. It's a conversation that I didn't really feel prepared to have, and yet when I sat down with her, I was taken by surprise by how just easily and beautifully it flowed. And I hope as you listen, there are some nuggets of wisdom, of truth that resonate with your own experience. And I hope you enjoy. Hi, Mom.
Hi.
Welcome back.
Yes, it's been a little minute.
It has been a minute. A couple days ago, I rewatched the episode that I filmed talking about Dad. And I really felt like it deserved a conversation with you and me. Not just about him, but more about grief and death and loss and kind of the journey that we've been through the last 7.5 years. So I'm really glad that you said yes to that. Some people would say no.
Well, it's definitely a part of our lives.
Yeah. I wonder, I'm getting packed up and the car ready, and maybe it's just because I was dropping into these themes this morning, but I was feeling like a little sad and a little bit lonely. And I think also because we're getting ready to drive up north, which for people who are not from Wisconsin, I think it's important to define that we just mean we're going to go to the lake north of where we live most of the time, technical term. But I particularly feel close to Dad up in northern Wisconsin. And
for sure.
I feel his absence there too.
Yeah, you've lived your whole life up there. We started when you were really little. You weren't even walking yet the first time that you met the North Woods. And it's been ever since. Now there's been a love there.
Yeah, lots of my best memories of really feeling close to him and really doing things with him, because we didn't do a lot with Dad up there, but I think there was about an hour and a half every weekend where you were like, oh my God, if you don't get these kids out of the trailer, I'm going to lose my mind. And then Dad would take us fishing, or Dad would take us for a boat ride, or he would take us to the lake to swim, or he would do something. But I remember, being out in the boat in the channel. Probably a lot of my happiest memories with him are up there.
Yeah, I think for most of you kids, pretty much.
Yeah.
Well, because we spent so much time there. It was basically every weekend in the summer if we could. Mm-hmm. And then even more so for all of the holidays, including winter holidays sometimes too. Yeah. So that was good memory making.
A couple weeks ago, I did a potato fry for 3 friends that came up to visit us at the lake. And, this one friend of mine, she said to me, how did you learn how to do this? And I told her the story about how, we just watched, that was Dad's thing, he fried the potatoes. And, but we all watched. And then I remember the first summer that he wasn't with us. And we all had this little moment where we knew we had to have a potato fry, and it was who was gonna step up. And collectively, we all, we pieced it all together. And
well, do you remember the little kids? And I want to say it might have been Miles who said, "How are we ever going to have a potato fry without Grandpa?" And I had to reassure him that we definitely could do that because we had really watched, and Grandpa didn't do it all by himself.
He didn't do it by himself.
And Ken and I basically ran that first summer because I was always the helper anyway. I stood there and handed things to your father, and he did it, and he loved. I mean, that was probably the highlight of his summer, always. Couldn't wait to be able to do that with everybody.
Mom, when you think about Dad now, where do you think he is?
Wow. Gonna make me cry right away.
I'm not trying to.
I always think he's relatively close. I don't think about him so much as gone as just different. Still able to maybe know what's going on and know that we're all okay. And I think that's probably the biggest thing that I need to have him know is that we truly are okay. Because I think he worried about that if he wasn't around, things wouldn't happen the same, and they definitely don't. But he needs to know that, and I keep telling him that. We used to have discussions about if he died first, what would happen to me, and I kept assuring him that I'd be fine because I had 3 years before I ever met him, and I did just fine. And those were really, really good years for me. And then we would talk about what would have happened if I had been the first one to go. And we decided he'd need at least 6 people to take care of him because he wouldn't be able to do it any other way.
Yeah, I think it's funny. All his worry about us being fine. I mean, we're actually better than fine. We're doing pretty great. But
I think it's good that he knows that. And I think he does know that.
Yeah. But it makes me think about, when I think about Dad, it makes me think about the whole concept of heaven and is there an afterlife and what happens next? And I'm curious, what do you believe?
Oh, God, I hope there is. I want to see all those people that have gone before me. I really do. I want to put my arms, whatever arms those are, around each one of them. And I have no clue what it is we get to, but I just can't believe that this is all there is, even though I feel like we make our own heaven, if you will, on this earth by the goodness that we live and that we do for others. I don't ever think about the beyond as a reward. I just think of it as next. My idea of heaven as a kid was ice cream. All the ice cream. I'm way, way beyond that now. It certainly is a oneness with this God I believe in, but also a oneness with all of creation. And then that also means that all those people that I have loved and who have loved me are part of that oneness too. And I have no idea how that's going to happen, but I have confidence that something will happen. So I'm not ready to go yet, but I think I'm okay about whatever there is that's next.
Yeah. We talk probably, I would think, more about death than the average, family, or at least you and I. We've had a lot of talks about it, what you want, what you hope for, preparing for it. I mean, gosh, I even asked you to write your own eulogy. I mean, not eulogy, your own obituary. So I get all the details right, which you haven't done yet. So I'd really like you to get on that. All those little moves and all the places and where you were. And I need it written down on a piece of paper because I won't get it right. And I won't have anyone to check in with on it.
No. Yeah, I don't know that there's anybody else who knows the details, and I'd have to actually look some of them up because, they're kind of on some papers that I've got, but not in one place.
But when you think about your own death, I mean, I think about my own actually probably more than the average person who's 52 does. And time sometimes feels very finite to me. It has for a long time, probably since I was sick. I have this just keen awareness of life being kind of short. How do you feel about the idea of dying?
I don't think I'm scared, but I think, I just said, I don't think I'm ready to go yet. I'd like to be here for a little while yet. But having seen death from the time that I was a little kid, when my great-grandmas were still around and then died, and we were not shielded from that. We went to the funerals. We went to the cemetery. I remember looking at that opening in the ground in the cemetery, and we each got to put some dirt on my amazing great-grandma's coffin that was down there. It's never, ever scared me. So, and then with the religious and spiritual upbringing that I've had and all the study that I've done, it is a normal part of what we go through in a lifetime, and then we come to the end. And so I'm absolutely don't think I'll be scared. I might be a little reluctant, to let go and go, because I love being here with all of you. And that's the piece. I like seeing your lives unfold. I never really thought about when you were becoming families, each one of you was becoming part of your own family in your own way and bringing children into this world. I just said this the other day. I said, I sat in Auntie's chair and held him when he'd been with you for a day. And I prayed that I would see him graduate from high school. And I said, okay, I'm moving the line. I want to be here to see how well he does in college now. And, even if I'm not here physically, I think I might still know. So I like that part. So fear, not so much. Reluctance, yes.
This morning when I was out letting the dogs out really early, it must have been about 5:30, there was a cardinal at my feeder. And I thought maybe Dad was paying me a visit this morning. You put that in my mind that, you think of him whenever you see a cardinal. I'm wondering, where do you feel close to him? Are there ways in which you still feel like you connect with him?
Oh, definitely up north, because that's a place that we totally built together, and that was our place. So that's probably one of the hardest places for me to be, because he's not physically there. He's not down in the workshop painting trains. He's not out working on a project. And the projects are still there. So I get frustrated that he left when he did and left all that stuff, So I'm in a whole new place where he never lived with me, but he lived up north with me. And we had probably some of the best days together up there that we had in our whole time together. So that's one of the reasons why I think it's still kind of hard and lonely. The drive up is hard without him in the car. I got to do the whole time, and even if he would have been napping next to me, he was there napping, But I do. I love the North Woods, but it's difficult at times.
As you think about, the next, let's say 10 or 15 or 20 years, however many years you have left, are there things that you still, hope for, want to experience, are there other things that are on your list of, I want to do this, I want to experience this, I want to feel this, I want to see this,
I don't know that there's anything out there that I really feel like I haven't had a chance to do. Mostly it's just seeing all of you with your lives unfold, because I think that would be the hardest part for me. If we get to whatever the beyond is and we have no connection to those we love that are still here on this planet, and we don't know what's going on, that is the one little nagging thing is, and one of the reasons why I think I'm reluctant to go is because I want to see the successes. I'll be there for the hard stuff too, but all these young people are now getting of an age where they've got so much in front of them, and I would like to see at least some of it with them. Yeah. They're going to have families, and I likely won't be around for most of their families, but knowing that they are rock solid in who they are as human beings and as good people, and I think they've got excellent foundations right now, and they're all heading in the right direction. I'd like to see more of that. Yeah. So that's my big thing.
I think that's a really good bucket list. I remember when you told me that going to Costco was on your bucket list. And this is before you had one up by where you live now. And I remember saying to you, Mom, we have to get a better bucket list.
Yes, Julie said it too.
I think you might have had Trader Joe's on it too. And I was like, oh man, this is really low-hanging fruit. Like we need to
God.
We need to come up with a new list.
Yeah, I think my list has improved.
Yeah, I think it has. So,
I do like spending time with the friends that I have too. So, and we all look at each other and think about how life has changed for all of us. I mean, when we started meeting monthly in 1981, we were all raising children who were quite young. And now we've all got grandchildren, and we've lost some of the spouses. And it's been interesting when we get together and we talk about what do the days ahead look like. We know they're going to be different. Yeah. And so I think we too, as a group of seniors, are paying attention to what's most important and what's on our proverbial bucket lists.
Yeah. When you think about who you are today versus who you were nearly 8 years ago.
Oh.
When Dad died, what's changed for you? What's changed in you? What's changed about you?
Well, 8 years ago, I think I was relatively confident, but I still always kind of depended on Dad for some things, for some of the decisions that had to be made. But now it's me. It's, I've said this to a couple of you already, that I don't have to ask permission from anybody anymore because it's me. I make the decisions. I moved. I cleaned out a time of 49 years of being in the same space. And I had help, but I basically cleaned that out and moved to a whole new space in my life. And I am delighted with where I am. I really am. And so when I walk around now over here where I'm living, and I think about how amazing this is that I got to this place. And I definitely had people who helped me, but it really was me doing it. The person that I was not too many years ago would not have been able to do that on their own. I would have been in a panic, it just would have been really, really hard. And I feel really good that I was able to do this. Now, I don't know if I answered that whole question.
Well, you were talking about confidence.
Yeah,
that's
I
really
mean,
emerged for you.
well, I have to go back further than 8 years. I have to go back to when I was significantly younger and had really no confidence. And I went on to school when I was in my 40s, and then I did stuff. I mean, I gave talks to people. I never in a million years would have ever dreamed that I would have been anything beyond a grade school teacher. I could do kids. I could be with children, and that was just fine. But I was talking to adults of my level, and some people with even way more education than I was, and I was able to do that.
And you were
so that
teaching them,
was,
and you were the authority,
yes, and never ever did I dream that would be part of my life. And so I think that was the start of the change in me. And your father used to say, somewhat seriously, but with a smile on his face, where did I go? Why did I change? And it's like, yeah, and I'm not going back, And I know he was proud of what I was able to do and what I was, the things that I was able to do. And because he was there a few times when I gave some of those talks. But it was also a little bit of a shakeup for him, because he came to realize that he wasn't the only authority in our relationship, that there was definitely a partnership going on. And so by the time that he left, we really had come to a very good place together. Not perfect by a long shot, but way better than it had been, that we totally trusted each other. And we worked together as a very good team. And so having half of that team not in my life anymore was hard. But because I now had that newfound confidence in myself, I think I was able to keep on going. Mm-hmm. So, and it was good.
Are there any moments in the last, 8 years that really stand out for you as just really uniquely challenging? Like, holy shit, I don't think I can do this, or...
Well, my heart attack, certainly.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that was huge. Even right after Dad died and I was in rehab for those couple of weeks, I wasn't too sure of how I was going to be able to cope with everything. But I am so grateful that the three of you were really there to handle everything for me at that moment and then gradually give it back to me. Mm-hmm. And you never, none of the three of you ever let me just sit. It was like, come on, mom, you're, and I think about even after I had that big heart surgery, that'll be 3 years ago this fall.
Yeah.
You were bound and determined that I was going to get back to where I needed to be, and you didn't give me an inch, and that was good. I mean, I am grateful that you did. You never did it in a terrible way. You just kept. I don't even want to use the word pushing, because it was much more encouraging. You knew what I needed, and you were able to keep me motivated. So I
remember you saying, "Well, why don't we just put a hospital bed in the living room?" Because we weren't sure how you would do with stairs.
Oh, get downstairs at your house. Yeah.
And I said, absolutely not. A hospital bed would look horrible in my living room. It won't go with anything. So we're going to learn how to do stairs.
Yeah. And we did.
And you did.
Oh my God. It took me a while, but I got there. And then I had to come back up because meals were not served up there.
No, I didn't bring meals to you. I didn't. No. I mean,
maybe the first day.
I did deliver some things to you, but yeah.
No, that was good. That's good. And I do. I mean, you still continued, all three of you continue to still challenge me a little bit, because, I'm not a spring chicken anymore, and it gets really hard to move sometimes. I don't want to turn into my father, who stopped moving and therefore couldn't move anymore. But sometimes I don't want to move as much as you'd like me to either. So
I know. I mean, it's a little bit of a delicate dance. Like, we don't want to push too hard, but I
don't want to end up in a wheelchair right now either.
Oh God,
so,
no, we don't want that for you either.
You can keep pushing.
It would be super hard to get you to the potato fry if you're in a wheelchair. Okay,
not going to work well there. Oh my God.
Mom, do you miss partnership? Do you ever, I mean, do you ever wish you still had it? Have you thought about, were there times when you thought maybe you'd look for it in this latter part of your life?
For a little tiny bit every once in a while. I think the biggest time is when I have to go to an event and I have to walk in alone. That's the hardest thing in my life right now. If I don't know a lot of people, I went to a luncheon just maybe 2 weeks ago, and it was like, oh, who am I going to know? And, I got to drive there by myself. I got to walk in that door by myself. And even though Dad didn't really hang around when we went to events together,
disappeared all the time.
We went in the door together, and if I really got desperate, I'd go find him, and just stand next to him and let him talk. But that's the hardest thing. And, maybe once or twice somewhere along the line, I thought about it would really be nice to have somebody in my life. But generally, no, I'm pretty content by myself. I'm much more of an introvert than, so I'm good. And I think about the work that it would take to have another relationship. And it's just beyond me. It really and truly is. It's just, oh my God, we worked so hard on what we had together. And I just truly can't see myself doing that again with somebody would be, have a whole lot of lived experience that we'd have to blend. It's like too much.
I see how your friendships have deepened in the last few years. And I just feel really good about that. And I see the way you all really support each other. It's not the same as having, that one person, but I often look at the things that have shifted in my life without Dad here. And, I think about our relationship and the way that we have really formed such a deeper connection, a more authentic connection, a more adult relationship. I don't know that would have happened as easily or at all if he was still alive. We've talked about this before. He took up a lot of oxygen. You've been able to spend so much good time with these friends of yours. And I hear you talk about them and not just what you're doing together, but the relationships that you are continuing to deepen and expand. And I wonder, would that be the case? His absence opening up space for other things, for you.
Well, I think there's definitely a freedom for me because I would have had to always be concerned about what's Dad going to do. And he certainly didn't not allow me to do stuff. But if I, for example, we went to Florida for a whole month together, and that was delightful. It was wonderful. It was absolutely excellent, but it would have been way, way different. First of all, if I would have left Dad home, that would have, don't know what that would have been like, but even with him along, it would have been totally different. Absolutely, totally different. So the fact that I'm now a single, there is a bit of freedom with that I don't have to, here we get back to I don't have to ask permission. I don't have to check in. It's my decision to make, and I don't necessarily have to run it by an other. And while sometimes I wish I could, generally it's been okay. It's just been fine. As
my friends and I have aged, we've talked about this, I've watched this in you. I just feel like, well, first of all, women are more likely to outlive their male partners than men are likely to live their female partners. I mean, that's like a fact, right? More women become widows than men. And yet what I've also seen is the women that I know, and I see this in you, and I see this in your friends, and I see it in some of my aunts. As we age, we become more curious, more embodied, more, maybe even more adventurous, more, engaged in different ways. I'm wondering, has that shown up for you? Do you feel that way?
Well, I certainly have been doing a couple of things that I wasn't doing before. I mean, I do volunteer work now on a regular basis, and that's been very good for me. And it's, challenging for me. And I don't know for sure. I'm not sure I would have been doing it if Dad were still around, because I think I would feel like I have to be with him for the most part. I mean, he'd have aged some since, in these last years.
Yeah, he would have.
I have no idea physically what things would have been like for him, but I was always his caregiver. I mean, I did a good job of taking care of him in all sorts of ways, from bookkeeping to cooking to everything,
Helping him turn on the television when he couldn't figure out the remote.
I mean, it was just everywhere, so I that's where part of my freedom comes. I don't have that in my life anymore, and it's okay. So I do some of those things. I mean, I belong to a couple of book clubs now, and that's been great. And I don't know that I would have felt as free again, here comes that word, to do that, because I would have needed to spend the time with him. Yeah. And again, I certainly wouldn't mind it having a little more time with him, but the fact that I don't is okay. It's okay. I know he's in a good place. Wherever that is, I know things are just fine for him.
Yeah.
And so therefore, I need to make this the best life that I can right now, too.
I think for me, I've been able to just recognize that as much as Dad knew how to have a good time, it was a very narrow way of experiencing joy.
Yeah.
And Dad was, in my opinion, a very constrained and limited person.
Yep.
He had so much, anxiety, worry, struggle. He had a lot of feelings of shame and inadequacy that I think burdened him and were, I always experienced him as there's just a lot going on in his brain that was limiting him from really being in the moment, really being able to engage, being able to let go, enjoy, loosen up, live a little. There were just so many challenges for him to that.
Right.
And in his absence, I find myself sometimes experiencing more freedom, more joy, not feeling as constrained, not feeling as burdened. And I feel that with you too. I feel that when we travel together, when we go do things, when we go experience stuff, there isn't that energy that was him, I mean, God, and I love him so much, but that energy could be a drag, it could make, you would be having a blast, and then you could catch yourself oh gosh, maybe I shouldn't be having too much fun, maybe I should work a little harder, maybe this shouldn't be so easy. Maybe I should make it more difficult.
He grew up in a whole different world than most of us, any of us did. I didn't grow up the way he did.
No.
I mean, it was just a whole different time. It was almost like he was part of a different generation. And really, he kind of was.
Than you. You're saying he felt like a different generation than you. Oh, wow. And you guys are 5 years apart. So that's a big statement.
Yeah. But because of the family situation that he was in, he was with all older people. I was with all younger people. And I think I had a very young thinking set of parents, especially my mom. We grew up on the forward piece of what life could be and how you could operate and how men did things and women did things. I mean, there was such a radically different way of just even thinking about jobs, if you will,
roles.
And rules about religion and stuff. And somehow I never was that was never part of my life.
Yeah.
And it definitely was for him.
Well,
So-
I think Dad being the youngest of 8 and born, 1937, right? I mean, he's at the end of the Great Depression.
Yep.
I mean, Grandma was 39 years old when she had him, right? She was born in 1898. She raised all those children during the Depression.
Yeah.
I mean, just that narrative, like coming out of World War I, entering into World War II, just that narrative alone explains so much. And you're only the second child in your family. Your parents were so much younger when you were born. I mean, there probably was how many years? I mean, when was Grandma Kaufman married?
My parents were
born
10 years older than the oldest child that Dad's parents.
Oh, yeah.
were.
Okay. So Dad's oldest brother, your parents were 10 years older than him.
My grandma was almost the same age as Dad's mother.
Dad's mother, yeah. So there's a whole, that's a generation right there.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that stuff is real, I mean, context matters.
Well, and you grow up in a different part of the country or the state even, I mean, we grew up in the country. They grew up in the city, if you will. Different.
It only makes me laugh because it was such a small little town. But yes, it's all relative.
But it was different than my part of the world,
I know.
We were 4-H kids. So we had animals that lived on a farm, we had cows that got milk, things like that, all those different. We were exposed to nature differently even.
Oh, 100%. You taught Dad so much about, much of what he appreciated in nature was because
Grandpa
of you.
had never seen a baby bird in a nest. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I mean, really.
I feel lucky.
Yeah. It was such a gorgeous day yesterday. And he said to me, "Can we go for a beautiful walk, Mom?" And he picked the spot, and we went up to an area where they turned a Air Force Base back into a prairie.
Oh, wow.
It's in full bloom, right along the lake. Beautiful sunny day. The prairie was just bursting with color and scent and sound. And the lake was just blue as could be, and reflecting the sky. And we walked 2 miles, and he held my hand the whole way. And the whole conversation was, how many colors can you see in the flowers? This is so beautiful. This is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen, And I really felt close to you yesterday while I was walking because I was realizing that I learned to do this from you, and it was your appreciation for nature and all of that helped me appreciate it, that helped me teach him, all these things. I mean, it was very, and I mean, I could see the picture of Grandma in the garden, and it all just generationally lined up, and it was just a gorgeous moment of connection.
Yeah, this is the 4th generation of my awareness of all of that because it would have been my grandma, my mom, me, now you, and
now my kids.
You kids, all 3 of you are doing a great job of teaching your own children how beautiful this world is and how we have to take care of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think those are the moments when I feel closest to Dad.
Mm-hmm.
When I feel connected to you, when I feel connected to my kids, when I have those little special tender moments, I don't know like this whole concept of heaven, heaven and hell. I don't know that I really believe in it, but I do energetically feel him present a lot. And I feel like I'm still in a relationship with him, which is, it's a hard thing to describe. What does that relationship look like? But I feel like we're still in conversation. I'm still learning things from him. He's still helping, guiding me.
Right. Well, his words keep coming back, I'm sure. Mm-hmm. There's certain words that you just kind of hang on to at times. And, now here's the plan.
Well, that one for to begin with,
Now that got used and used and used. And so I think there's still a plan. And I think he's smiling about the plan right now. I really do. I mean, seeing this all happening for you right now, wow, in 100 years, he wouldn't have a clue how to get to see what's going on. But
but he would want to listen.
Yes.
He would.
Yeah,
And
he would want to hear the stories. So.
He would. And I think he would really connect with the themes in his own way. He would approve.
I think so.
Yeah. Mom, as you think about this experience of loss, I mean, how did some of the other big moments of loss in your life inform it? I mean, you talked about like being okay with death and being around it and seeing it and, like the funerals that you attended. But I mean, are there moments where losing him triggered other losses in your life, or losing him helped you heal other losses in your life?
I don't know. If I think about the losses in my life, it almost exclusively is a piece of death, because it started with me at age, I had just barely turned 22, and we lost my brother. He was 20, and that is such a huge, huge thing in my life, because I was in the convent at that time teaching, and they did not do a good job of allowing us to grieve in any way, shape, or form. I came back from that funeral in the next morning, and in the dark, in the night, in the silence that we observed at night, and I was in my 5th grade classroom the next morning with 50 5th graders. And
50?
Yeah. Was.
I think it's important that everyone hear 50 5th graders in one classroom.
5th graders. Yep. And it was, I don't remember much more than that. But that was the very same year, shortly before that, in November of that school year, 1963, that John Kennedy had been killed, and that was that same 5th grade class. And wow, so I mean, 2 huge things in lives of everybody, and then my life with my brother. That shaped me a bunch, just a whole bunch, and. Has always stayed with me. Of course, then the next big loss in my life was losing our first child without ever having been able to have any kind of a relationship with him, because he was born way too early and just couldn't stay. And so that was big. And then we lost very significant people in our family. Your uncle.
Yeah, Uncle Iggy.
How big that was, and the journey that we made with that whole family, and how important that was that we were able to journey with them. And, so it was any of those things. Anytime you talk about a loss in my life, the list that I almost automatically make are those significant moments. Right now, I feel like I am losing a bit of me, in the sense of aging feels like it's taking some of my abilities from me. My brain seems fine. You could correct me on that one if you needed to. But the fact that my body is not as cooperative as it used to be. And, somebody will talk about, oh my goodness, I just want to go for a run. And it's like, oh, never could, never will, so I'm just glad I can walk, kind of thing. So that's a bit of a loss for me. The fact that I left that home of 46 years with your father, 49 years of actually being there. That was a loss in a way, but led to something just really beautiful and good. So not equal kinds of losses. But I think every day it's more about a letting go than it is a loss in how I tend to live my days now.
That's a beautiful way for anybody to live their days, regardless of their age.
Yeah.
I think so much of the pain that we experience with death and loss is because of the grip we often have on things, right? That are not permanent, right? And
we don't have control. That's
Yeah.
another big piece of that.
Well, loss and death teach us that, right? Over and over again. Or they invite us to learn it. I don't know. As humans, we sure try really hard not to learn those lessons.
Yeah.
Mom, I'm wondering, what advice or what thoughts you would have for someone listening who is experiencing a big loss, the death of a loved one, the death of a partner, a child, a spouse, a best friend. That litany of losses that you just went through, you listed all of those. We didn't mention the loss of Jimmy and David, our two little cousins, your nephews at such a young age, and several others. I guess, I don't know, is there anything you'd share? Something you've learned, a little nugget of wisdom, something you hold on to?
Yeah. Be patient with yourself. And if the grief overwhelms you, it's okay. Hopefully you've got somebody that you can talk to. That would be critical. I have friends who've been down very similar roads. I've got friends who walked in front of me with grief all their own before I ever had some of the big grief in my life. And I am so, so grateful that they were able to model for me that life can be okay, never the same, but it can be okay, and it can be good again. And just be patient. Don't expect things to disappear in a day. Don't expect the tears to just dry up. Here I am, 7.5 years into it, and I can cry at the drop of a hat.
Yeah.
And I am so grateful that I have people who will be there with me and don't say, oh, forget about it, or, you should move on, or it's going to be fine. No, it's not going to be fine. It's going to be different.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily going to be fine. But so be patient and try to think about the good stuff. I know there's going to be lots of pain that comes with it, but if you can think of one thing that might make you smile, even if it's not a smile on your face, if it's a smile in your heart, and you're grateful for having had that person in your life, or even that event in your life, that can make a difference and help you get through the day, through the minute. And breathe. Just breathe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Always breathe.
I love that, Mom. I often think, give yourself some grace. It's just another way of saying be patient, right?
Yep.
Take a pause. It's okay. Yeah.
Doesn't have to be perfect.
Yeah.
Never will be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I recognized very early on that the pain that I felt was really just a reflection of how much I loved him, right? And how deep the loss was. And so the connection to gratitude for that love and the pain as an expression of how deep that love was very consoling.
Yeah. Not everybody is going to have a really, really significant loss in their life that still has had a lot of love in their life. So there are going to be people who have big losses in their life that are extremely, extremely painful to deal with.
Yeah.
So this shouldn't be sugar-coated in any way either.
No.
I am lucky enough to know that I was deeply loved.
Mm-hmm.
Not every situation is that. And so, again, it takes a great deal of patience. It takes other people to help us get through some of this really, really, really hard stuff.
That's a really, really beautiful point, Mom. Yeah, really important one.
No, I would not want anybody who happens to find this podcast to think, oh my God, that's nothing that I've ever been through. The heck are they talking about? There's a lot of real life out there that's really, really difficult.
Yeah.
And we need all the help we can get, all the people that we can gather, all the love that we can find in our lives. And sometimes it might even be somebody you don't know that can help you through the moment, get you to the next breath.
Yeah. This has been a really, really beautiful conversation for me to have with you. I mean, we didn't it wasn't earth shattering, and some of it we've talked about before, but I think the other piece of losses and grief is it never really goes away. So there's always something you can always revisit it. It'll find its way back to you.
Yeah, there's lots of layers.
Yeah. And this weekend when we're sitting around the fire and making potatoes, or taking a boat ride or whatever we do together, there'll be a little bit of a deeper sense of connection with you because we did this.
I'm grateful.
Yeah, me too. Now I'm emotional.
Good.
Yeah, I just love you so much, I just do. And these couple episodes, Mom, they've really been amazing for me to be able to have these conversations with you. And I know that there have been people who've listened, who've commented and told me how glad we did it, but I'm thrilled about that, but it's been really important to me. And I'm just really, really, I'm really moved today. Kind of laughing by it. It's taken me by surprise. I think these tears are just a reflection of just a ton of gratitude and just so much love for you.
Well, the feeling is mutual. I am very, very grateful that God agreed that you should be part of my life.
Yeah, me too.
And somehow your father and I created you together. You're a combination of the two of us in the best sense of the word, Sarah.
Yeah. He would have loved this, Mom. And he does love it. Maybe he heard the whole thing. You never know.
I think he did. I think so.
Yeah.
That's my thought, and I'm sticking to it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Good.
Love you.
I love you. Thank you so much for listening today. We would love to hear your reactions, your thoughts, your comments. What hit you? What did you relate to? You can share it with us on our website at holyschmidt.com. WHOLEYSCHMIDT. Or you can visit us on Instagram, join the conversation, drop a comment on YouTube if you watched this episode today. And please don't forget to follow and subscribe. Really join the community, engage with us around these important topics, and know that we just appreciate that you're here. Thank you.